Jamie's taking a dump in his basement. Scritchy, scritchy, scritchy. It's Goblin.
You're still listening. This is our final transmission.
Oh, we're here, Jamie.
We are here, Sam. Welcome to Final Transmission, the podcast where you, Sam Russo, and me, Jamie Carruthers, talk about, around, through, and below a horror film every week.
Upside, inside, out, a horror movie. One a week. Holy cow. Who has that kind of time? Me and you. And here we are.
I think quite a lot of people have that kind of time.
True.
But
and that's a good thing because they're going to listen to it. So,
well, they might just make their own podcast. Don't do that. Making a podcast is really very, very difficult, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, don't just copy ours. Are
Yeah,
you drinking
the first
Pepsi,
podcast.
Right? You're on a can of, that looks like a retro can of Pepsi.
It's a regular kind of.
Is that just what Pepsi looks like nowadays? I don't even look. I've been in my bunker for so long.
I remember when we used to have that bunker shtick.
Yeah, that was great fun. Speaking of bunker shtick, today's movie features a heavy dose of bunker shtick, which is also a great name for a character. Anyway, today's movie is the 2008 horror flick Pontypool.
Pontypool?
When was the first time you saw this movie, Jamie?
I want to say 2009.
You saw it very soon after it came out, in that case.
Yeah. In 2009, I was consuming horror and consuming media like nobody else.
Voracious
like I was just
consumption.
Yeah. I had an appetite and it could not be satiated by 15 shitty zombie movies a week. Not even
15?
by...
Holy shit.
I would watch literally everything.
I reckon I've seen 15 zombie movies in my life.
You can't tell people that. It would mean that they wouldn't let you have a podcast anymore, Sam.
Well, fuck those guys. Thankfully, it's not up to them. It's up to you. And I would just go as far as to say I've probably just seen the best 15 and cut the crap. Okay? Cut the crap, bud.
Of the 15 zombie movies that you've seen, what's the worst? What's the worst of the best?
I wasn't a huge fan of Return of the Living Dead Part 2.
That one sucks.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Because it's just a rehash of the first one.
Yeah, and it just doesn't have the same pizzazz. It doesn't have the same spunk.
Yeah, whereas the third one fucking rips.
Third one I haven't seen. What is your worst ever zombie movie? P.S. Debatable as to whether Pontypool's a zombie movie, but carry on.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tricky one because there are different flavors of bad zombie movies.
Yeah.
So obviously we talked about the Return of the Living Dead sequels.
Mm.
Like the later sequels, there was Rave to the Grave and Necropolis.
Yeah.
They were pretty fucking terrible.
Mm.
There was the Day of the Dead sequel, Day of the Dead 2 Contagion.
Oh yeah, that was actually possibly worse.
Yeah, but then there's also like super low budget. There's no possible way that you're going to make a good film, but kudos for trying. So like some of those are really bad, but I don't want to name any of them because I think it's respectable that they tried that with no money. Whereas some of these fuckers, some of these Day of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead, like let's stick the name Hammer on it and make it a movie. They had loads of money, not necessarily big money, but they had plenty of money, and therefore they should go fuck themselves.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Return of Living Dead 5, Rave to the Grave.
That kind of brings me to my first point about Pontypool. This is not a huge movie. This isn't a high budget movie. This isn't something that probably had a huge run in cinemas or anything like that. It's Canadian. And it's got probably a sub $1 million budget, I would imagine, or maybe a couple of mil tops. Probably didn't gross much, etc., etc. However, I feel like the production value on this movie is light years ahead of its budget. I think it has the look and feel of a really legitimately expensive film, and I can't quite put my finger on why. I think it might be performance based, but
I think Stephen McHattie is killing it throughout this movie.
Career performance,
and like we'll dig into why and how he's so good.
Yeah,
I think there are a few moments in this movie that kind of highlight how cheap it was to make.
Yeah, there's a few, slight giveaways, but the vast majority of it it's really easy to settle into. There's nothing that's like, oh, fucking hell, cutting corners here, boy. Like, it's just like, okay, looks like this is legit.
I think like you can do that when you set your movie ostensibly in one location.
Yeah. Some movies fuck that up though. Like Saw looks like garbage, doesn't it?
I mean, I think Saw obviously came out a lot before this. It's meant to be dirty and grimy, but it does. You're right. It does look a bit. And I don't think it ever looks cheap though. I don't think it ever looks like.
I think it looks like fucking NCIS levels of cheap. I don't know. When was the last time you watched it? I watched it relatively recently. P.S. I love it. Like, it's one of my faves. But
yeah, I think I watched it relatively recently. I think Kaz went away for the weekend and I daisy chained 10 Saw movies over 3 days.
Agony. Me and Claire did that in lockdown, but we spaced it the fuck out because it's psychologically damaging to do that, Jamie. Yeah, I think it just looks like sick. It doesn't have a lot of visual style. It's not very pleasing, and that's not the case with Pontypool. That was my first impression.
Yeah, I think obviously Saw, for the example that we're talking about, is shot in like Greeno vision, isn't it?
Yeah, grizzly.
And say what you want about early 2000s horror movies, I certainly will, but like I don't love Greeno vision. I don't love that whole thing.
No, not a fan. And that's what I mean. It's a little bit revolting to look at in a lot of ways, whereas this is actually really fucking inviting to look at and quite a cozy kind of visual, very close, very intimate.
Yeah,
and I like that immediately.
Well, I'll tell you what, Sam, why don't we drop a synopsis, go kick our heels for a little bit, have a cup of tea, finish off our cans of retro Pepsi, and then come back and get into the nuts and bolts and zombies and whatnot of Pontypool.
Let's do that.
Okay, do you want me to drop the synopsis?
Yes.
Okay, so Grant Mazzy is a disgraced former nationwide radio shock jock who is now forced through circumstance to work for a provincial radio station somewhere in Ontario. Well, Pontypool, to be exact.
In the town of Pontypool.
Yeah, clues in the name. Not just a clever name.
Not just a clever name, dude.
And he is at loggerheads with his producer. As news comes in over the wire that something fucky, some mayhem may be ensuing outside of the radio station.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to report on this, try and figure out what's going on, all while remaining in one location as zombies or some sort of viral infection is ravaging the population of Pontypool. Is it bloodborne or is it something else? Only time will tell, Sam.
Only time will tell in Pontypool. Great synopsis, Jamie. I would agree that's what happens in this film.
I mean, it is what happens.
We got to celebrate these achievements.
Yeah. Do you know what else you've got to celebrate, Sam?
Diversity.
Yes, but also celebrate this podcast by dropping a 5-star review or a 4-star review or whatever review you want. But, if you've got a negative opinion, keep it to yourself. My mum always used to say, if you can't say anything nice, say nothing at all. But then
slag you off immediately. Jamie, you twat. If you got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all, you fuck. Yeah, I think your best course of action if you don't like this podcast would be to give it a 5-star review and a terrible write-up. That would be great.
I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and share it with your friends sarcastically. Be like, look at these fucking chuckleheads. Listen to this slop. That would be perfect. That's the dream I have for this podcast.
But if you like it, you can also leave a review. I'd be happy with that. And then also make your way over to social media. That's TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. If you didn't know what social media is,
telling them what social media is.
Well, that's where we have social media. And follow us at FT Horror Show.
Because the content is off the chisane.
The content is there. We do content sometimes.
Jamie's going to post a picture of retro Pepsi, which it turns out is normal Pepsi. Fuck. I'm out of touch. Have you played the fantastic PlayStation video game Pepsi Man before?
I don't think I have, no. I did
Have you
play.
heard of it?
I played the Fido Dido game for my Mega Drive when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And Cool Spot, that was a 7-Up game.
Yeah, I loved Cool Spot. I mean, they were both 7-Up games. Fido Dido was also.
Oh, yeah, of course it was, yeah. No, he was Sprite, wasn't he?
No, he was 7-Up.
Oh, cool.
I feel like we didn't have Sprite here in the 90s.
Really? Well, listen, I got to send you fucking Pepsi Man because it is a rip-roaring good time.
Well, see, this is the sort of thing that you should be rating 5 stars, right? We're talking about computer games based on the mascots of 90s drinks companies.
Yeah.
In an episode about Pontypool.
Pepsi Pool, brought to you by the Coca-Cola, our friends at the Coca-Cola Company, the world's biggest plastic polluter. Thanks for hanging out.
Whoa, holy shit. I guess that's why they call it Phantom Power.
Listen, Jamie, if there's one thing we can both agree on, it's that Red Scare looks after you. That's their main deal. They're always there for you. They've always got your back.
Yeah.
www.redscare.net when you need some love.
No matter what position you're in, they will help you. If you're feeling angry, they've got some angry shit for you. If you're feeling melancholic, they've got some sad shit. If you're feeling like you want to break into a car, there's Masked Intruder. Like, it's all there. It's all there for you. If you feel like you want to drown yourself, you can jump into Lake Michigan with a sincere engineer. Like, have a great time.
Very good.
All the time.
That's probably Red Scare's real motto, right? Have a good time all the time?
Yeah. I mean, I stole that from Spinal Tap, but Red Scare can have it.
They can have it from you. Then it's not stealing. Have a good time all the time. RedScareIndustries.net. Oh, we're back, Jamie.
That was some break we took there. Jesus Christ.
I know. Hours.
We are back. And
You
we're
weren't
going to talk
ready
about
for that, were you?
Absolutely not.
So, Pontypool, listen, I saw this fairly recently in terms of, the universe of Sam Russo. I saw this maybe 2018, 2019, around then. Took a chance on it, just saw it on some streaming platform, thought it looked cool, watched it, confirmed it was cool.
I think that's bold because, not to tip my hand, but in Sam Russo parlance, the poster for this movie is fucking ass.
Total shithouse. Yeah, it looks like total garbage. The one that I had was, it's like Stephen McHattie turning over his shoulder with his, cowboy hat and grimace and hands up against the window with "Shut Up or Die" written on the window.
Yeah.
So I can't honestly say. I think I must have been steered towards it by another movie, potentially an Of the Dead movie. So I went in thinking this was a zombie movie based on the cover, based on the the vehicle and the route there, and it's not. Turns out a zombie movie, in my opinion.
Okay, well, say more about that.
Zombies are the undead. There's no undead in this. It's a virus movie.
Yeah, there's no skeletons, so
No skeletons either. No animated corpses of any kind. Just fucked up people. So, obviously, the central premise of the horror in this movie is that a virus is spreading through words.
Sorry, Sam, I want to interrupt you because I know that we argued for 20 minutes over whether a skeleton was a zombie.
You're going to fucking seriously tell me this is a zombie movie?
No, but I'm not. I'm not going to say that. But I am going to say that I think the zombie versus viral virus that makes everyone act like a zombie, but they're not really undead. I think that is a bullshit debate that I can't be asked ever having in my life.
Yeah, it's not worth having. They're not eating people either. They're not eating brains, so they're not zombies.
The zombies in Day of the Dead, do you ever see them eat a brain?
No, but they eat people.
That's true.
That's why I said either. They're not eating brains or people. These aren't undead. They're not eating people.
Yeah.
Therefore, they're not zombies.
I think much like the difference between Pepsi Max and Pepsi Full Sugar, the material difference is unfathomable. And therefore, I just
Unfathomably
think that
huge.
the debate is not worth having. If it walks like a duck and eats brains like a duck and spreads through acting like a zombie, then
Then it's
who cares?
yeah, I don't care because I know for a fact it's not a zombie movie because it meets none of the criteria of a zombie movie.
I
A zombie movie has to have a zombie in it, and this movie doesn't have any zombies in it.
I think people who are autopiloting
Yeah.
because of a viral infection, like a viral zombie, if they act like zombies, what does it matter if they're not technically undead?
Because it means they're not zombies. I think I'd put this in the same bracket as like 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Why?
Bunker thriller. The great genre of bunker thriller.
They're
Virus
not really in a
movies,
bunker.
bunkers.
They're just in the basement of a church.
It becomes a bunker. It's bunkertastic.
How does it become a bunker?
Because it's
There's
besieged.
no bunkers in this movie. So all something has to do to become a bunker is be besieged.
Fuck yeah, a church basement besieged by apocalyptic scenarios. Bunker movie. Immediately.
So if I sit in my downstairs loo,
Has to be underground.
okay, if I sit in the loo in my cellar,
Ooh. Yeah.
I don't have a cellar, but
And then
for
the end of
sake
the world comes and you're besieged. Bunker movie.
What if 3 cats are clawing at the door?
Fuck yeah. The best bunker movie ever. The cutest bunker movie of all time. Jamie's taking a dump in his basement. Scritchy, scritchy, scritchy. It's Goblin. Great bunker movie. Pure thrill ride. It's not a fucking zombie movie, I'll tell you that much. It's about as much of a zombie movie as Pontypool at that point.
Well,
Zombie
I just
count in
don't
both
think-
movies, 0. People besieged in basements, multiple.
But a basement isn't a bunker. There are 0 bunkers in this movie, Sam.
I would
Therefore, it can't
argue-
be a bunker thriller.
I would argue that a basement becomes a bunker in siege in times of siege.
I think if you have a steadfast, fixed interpretation of what a zombie is,
Yeah.
you should also have a steadfast, fixed interpretation of what a bunker is.
It's more that I have a more flexible interpretation of the word bunker, but I have a very strict rule about zombie movies that they have to contain a zombie.
I think a bunker implies some level of fortification.
Yeah.
And there's no fortification in closing the church door and going downstairs.
I think by virtue of being underground, you're fortified.
Well, then, why do fallout shelters exist? Surely just go to the basement.
Yeah, but you're going to
And
have
you
to
will
quibble
survive.
whether that's a shelter or a bunker by your standards.
All of this is so boring.
Yep, this is a bunker movie. It's not a zombie movie. This is one for the bunker chuds, not for the zombie boys.
I think there are as many bunkers in this movie as there are zombies.
There's one more church basement than both. Look at it that way.
So it's a church basement movie.
Yeah, you fucking love those. Jesus Christ, you can't get enough of church basements in your top 10.
Church basement movie. It's this, and then all those films that I starred in as an altar boy.
Yeah, it's that what's that movie we had to do where they get eaten by the church basement? I'm thinking of that one.
Oh, the Borderlands.
The Borderlands.
Spoiler.
This and the Borderlands. Yeah. Listen, as far as church basement bunker movies go, this is up there.
Yeah, as church basement zombie movies go, it's also way, way up there.
Listen, if you think this is a zombie movie, I feel bad for you, son.
Well, like I said,
Here it comes.
this
It
debate
doesn't matter.
was-
I'm just going to argue about it for an hour.
Yeah, well, no, I said it doesn't matter, and yet we still argued about it.
Well, because I think it does matter. I think it's important that like it's recorded on record that there aren't any zombies in this movie.
I guess it depends on your definition of a zombie.
Let's put it to the people.
Let's.
One of the recommended movies when you watch this is Splinter.
Yeah.
So you're going to tell me that's a zombie movie because it has virally animated flesh golems or fungally animated flesh golems
I mean,
in a bunker-esque scenario above ground in a kind of siege.
there's no bunker in Splinter.
No, but there's a siege type
There's a
scenario.
freezer.
Yeah, there is. God, that movie was fucking rad. Remember when he just freezes himself? Those were good times.
Splinter is good. Pontypool is good.
Good segue. So, what do you like about Pontypool?
The main thing that I like about Pontypool is Stephen McHattie's performance. He just kills it.
Yeah, you can't take your fucking eyes off this guy whole way through the movie.
How he makes all of this insane dialogue that is obviously very deeply written sounds so off the cuff, but in a way that makes you think that he's thought about it. So like he's articulating his thoughts, and like he sort of flubs a few words here and there. So like you really sort of believe that it's just stream of consciousness. And I think that is, up until the ending, some of like my all-time favorite one-man show acting.
Yeah, it feels really lived in, and it feels like it could easily be a one-man show. You know, it does have this feeling of supporting cast. Everyone else is kind of, you know, not extras, but kind of orbiting him in his performance. And I think the other strength of the movie is that everyone does a fucking great job of their performances. But he is so arresting from the very beginning, so visually interesting. So obviously he's a radio DJ, so we have this incredible voice to go with the face. What comes across as like a real trained radio voice as well. We get the idea he's been doing it for years. We don't need a fucking backstory because he just looks and sounds like he's been behind a mic his entire life. His etiquette is superb. His, you know, all of the stuff like diction, syntax, everything, magic. And it all does feel, like you said, like it's just coming out of nowhere. Even when he's reading off a prompter, it's like there's a clear kind of radio relationship there between producer and host, and he's flying tonally. It's pitch perfect, I think, in terms of performance.
Yeah, I do too. I also think he's a lovely sad cowboy with big soulful eyes, and I'm a sucker for that kind of character.
Yeah, in this he's horribly sleazy with the cowboy vibe though. It's way more like, I don't know what the word is. It just feels a bit more leather cowboy than it does Old West cowboy.
It absolutely feels like an affectation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, obviously we're in modern Ontario, so like there's no need for him to be a cowboy with his fucking rodeo shirt and his 10-gallon hat or whatever. Like there's no need for that.
Yeah. And I mean, I also think he's an actor that maybe, I might just be speaking for myself, but he kind of falls through the cracks a little bit because he resembles some better actors in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The sort of comparison with Lance Henriksen is probably quite obvious and probably a bit tired. His voice is quite often, in this at least, very Willem Dafoe. I imagine maybe he's kind of ended up second fiddle to some of those guys in his career. I know for a fact, I think I only know this guy from Watchmen and maybe X-Files. And I cannot think of another movie I've seen him in. I bet you've seen him in a bunch, right?
Yeah, no, I think I have. But like, I also think of him a bit more in the James Remar, like Peter Weller sort of camp.
Right.
There is some Willem Dafoe in there, but I think Willem Dafoe is so weird, or at least picks really, really weird roles.
Yeah.
That like, I would never really compare them. I mean, Lance Henriksen, you're right. I mean, it's obvious and it's tired, but it's a classic for a reason. But I was always been a big fan of Stephen McHattie. I've followed, not like, I never got like obsessed with him in the same way that I did with like Crispin Glover and went and bought all of Crispin Glover's movies and watched them all because Crispin Glover is a mad genius.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen any of the movies that Crispin Glover has directed?
I've only seen bits that people have sent me. I've been recommended them fucking almost endlessly, and they're just sort of hovering on that list that you only really get to when you've got some serious time on your hands, and I just haven't had that. I'm not there yet.
I mean, they're good. You've listened to his album, right?
Yep.
The beginning is the end is the beginning.
Whatever it's
called.
Yeah.
My favorite song on the Crispin Glover record is the cover of These Boots, where he just sobs all the way through it.
It's really funny.
It's much better than the rap song about wanking and the clown song.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's quite forgettable is the problem. Until you reminded me that all of those things are on that album, I'd completely forgotten they existed. So that's one to go back to, maybe.
The cover of These Boots, where he just cries all the way through it, is genuinely hilarious.
Yeah.
And like, obviously, like, it's ostensibly a sad song about like how you have to leave someone because they're a shithead.
Yeah.
So like, why not play on that emotion? I guess because you're Crispin Glover and you can't really act. But
it sounds like sad karaoke, though. It's great. You know, like you just imagine the person crying at the karaoke bar. It's brilliant.
yeah. But like the movies that he directed, like What Is It? And It Is Fine, Everything Is Fine. They are so weird and probably what may be considered problematic.
Why?
These days. He casts a lot of people with disabilities, some people with Down syndrome, some people with like multiple sclerosis. There's like a scene in What Is It when they go to hell and all of the demons are played by people with Down syndrome.
Are you just upset because you didn't get a call back from the audition?
I think if anyone knew or cared enough to look at it, he might have to have some difficult conversations. But
Well, speculatively, what do you think his defense of those casting choices are? Crispin, welcome to the show. You have cast every single person in hell using a performer, an actor, an artist who has Down syndrome.
Correct.
Thank you, Crispin. We hope the movie does really well. Have a great life.
I think his defense would be it's art. But, whatever.
Another articulate response from Crispin Glover. It's art, but whatever. I would like to see him. I'd like to see him speak on that, I think, because I'd like to see him talk about anything. I'd like him to tell me all about his breakfast, to be honest, but I'd love to hear what goes on in the man's mind. So, Stephen McHattie aside, obviously, directorially, how are you feeling about this movie?
For the most part, it's great. I think there are some odd choices, which I want to discuss with you. But I think Stephen McHattie's face is so gnarled and like corrugated that like you put some good lighting on him and the camera fairly close to his face, it's gonna look fucking cinematic. He's just got a really cinematic face. Put it in fucking IMAX. That's what I want. Yeah,
and I respect the total control of his facial performance as well. There's some great twitching, some brilliant like muscle spasming, some great blinking work. Just everything he does with his face is very conscious, very focused, and just wholly fucking engrossing. Really good face to look at.
Yeah, I'm gonna post a carousel of my 8 favorite Stephen McHattie faces.
It's a great show
from Pontypool because he makes some wonderful. He gives good face, Sam.
He sure does. Gives the best face in the biz.
You don't get to be as big as he is without giving some good face.
Yeah, without giving an enormous amount of face. Speaking of enormous amount of face, Bruce McDonald. What do you know him for?
Not an awful lot. He's made a bunch of other. I did watch Dreamland, which I thought fucking sucked. But yeah, no, I don't know him from an awful lot of other stuff, really. So, fuck off.
He did a TV miniseries called Killer Wave that looks fucking brilliant. It's just about big waves.
Is it about the beer?
Kona Big Wave.
Yeah.
This podcast brought to you by one of Sam's favorite beers, Big Wave, by the Kona Brewing Company. In terms of pacing, I think it starts hard and fast.
Yeah, well, I mean, it starts beautifully because, like, I almost wouldn't care if anything happened in this movie. I just want to watch Stephen McHattie talking to a microphone for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And I mean, luckily, it's lucky that I want that because that's what fucking happens.
Yeah, that's basically
But
it.
I would happily have that without any kind of zombie outbreak happening outside the station.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a couple of hard critique questions for you.
Go on.
Do you think this movie has any dips, lulls, lows, or tail-offs?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like me to expand on that?
I would, but I'd like you to after my next question.
Okay.
Do you buy the central premise of this movie that words are infections that cause people to go completely banana donk?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, you buy that, but you think the movie has some low points. What expand on the low points?
Okay, so low points. I think that weird extended Lawrence of Arabia blackface bad local community theater section in the end of the first act. It's fucking weird.
Loved it. Carry
Like
on.
I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know what they're trying to achieve. I don't know why the writer is the guy who's in that scene and they
Yeah.
call him by name. Like, I feel like if I was the writer, I'd be like, this is your thing. Leave me out of it.
I read that as a vehicle to show how small this town is and how low rent this broadcast is, and to give us an insight into your boy McHatty's character, because you know he mocks it openly and swears in front of the kids and strops around like a rock star. I just saw it as that, but you're right. It's maybe they do a whole song. It's quite long.
It's long and it doesn't have to be so blackfacey.
I think it does to show you how small this, in defense of blackface, I think to show you how small and isolated and you know, I hesitate to say backwards, but like just how rural, shall we say, the town of Pontypool is. You know, nobody cares that these kids are browned up for a production of Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, I find that weird. The big thing for me is I don't like the ending.
Right. Okay. What about the ending don't you like? Because holy fuck, does it... You know, to me it feels like an unplugged cable by the end of the movie, just like whipping around, electrocuting everything.
I don't like how optimistic that big fucking monologue by Grant Mazzy, Stephen McHattie at the end, after he's like, you know, yellow is crowded, all that stuff, which I like that. I don't buy that you solve this problem by making words meaningless.
Right.
That's something that I don't buy. If you're applying the meaning of that word to the other word, that word still exists. It still carries, but whatever. But yeah, the big monologue at the end where he's like, you know, we
Stop
whatever. Do you know
killing.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then
It's like
that's
bullshit.
one of the endings. What about the post-credit sequence?
well, that's gibberish to me.
Is it gibberish?
What do you think of that?
I struggle with the whole ending of this movie and the entire premise.
Really?
I think this is don't get me wrong, I really think this is a good movie and it's really fucking entertaining. And if you can view the idea of this infection as silly goosery, then it works. But when you dig into it, I think it just starts to fall apart, and that's why I don't really want to dig into it too much, because then it feels like I'm just being a fucking picky little nerd. But it makes no fucking sense, and that's fine. Ride that goose into the sunset. The post-credit sequence, I would love to think means something, but I have no idea what's happening there. It doesn't feel clever. It just feels a bit shoehorned. It feels like they've traveled to another dimension, which ties in with a lot of fan theories about, you know, multiple, like fifth dimension viruses traveling in ways we can't comprehend. And there's a lot of fan theory out there about this movie, which I respect.
I don't.
It's just not for me. You don't respect it?
The only fans theory that I respect is my own.
That tracks, actually. You should get into the is it a zombie movie Reddit. Well, okay, so you said earlier that you kind of buy the word virus.
Yeah.
So why is
I mean,
that?
I buy it. I don't necessarily buy it as a piece of narrative, but I buy it as a piece of artistic license to talk about something that happens in the real world, which is that, you know, language is infectious. Words can burrow in your brain and change the way that you think and feel and act.
Hmm. So you buy it as it's presented in the movie, essentially.
No, but I buy that as a vehicle to talk about the power of language.
Okay. Like if you go, say you go see a Brecht play or something and the premise is actually fucking completely bonkers, but you totally buy it for the purpose of the message.
Yeah. And like I sort of buy it generally because, like, why not? Why wouldn't words be infected? Did you ever read the book, The Rorschach Texts?
No.
I can't remember who it's by. It's on the shelf behind me. But so that's a book that's about a conceptual shark that lives in your brain and eats your memories.
Okay.
And in the book, the shark is represented through like ASCII text art. It's pretty cool. I mean, it was really cool to me in like 2004 or whenever it came out, and I was like, 17 or whatever. So like obviously the idea of a conceptual shark that lives in your brain and eats your memories is nonsense. But like same way that like a virus that can travel through language is technically nonsense, but like, I think it works enough until it stops working at the ending.
Yeah. I think I would agree if you can just sort of accept that that's what's happening, which I think the movie does want you to do. And I think there's actually kind of a range of interpretations of what the message of this movie is. There's people who think it's a very clear-cut metaphor for, how we should be careful with words and the power of words. And then there seems to be a lot of sort of fringy or more outlier theories about things like journalistic integrity and, speaking truth to power and suppression of truth, etc., etc. So at the very least, I think this movie provokes some interesting discourse with what is a pretty original vehicle for the mayhem, right? Like a pretty inventive enemy, if you will, or a threat.
I also think that it's all of those things. Like, I think as much as it's about like the power of language and like how, the wrong bit of information can radicalize you one way or another. I think it's also about, like you said, speaking truth to power and journalistic integrity. I think it's about like how bullshit small talk is and how a lot of people just say things just to hear themselves speak and get themselves into little patterns. I mean, I don't want to say too much on that because we literally have a podcast. But like I think any theory about what this movie's about, if it's about speaking and listening and hearing words, and I think they're all correct.
Yeah. It's bizarre that I'm currently listening to Willem Dafoe read The Langoliers, which has kind of historically been definitely not one of my favorite Stephen King books. Read by probably one of my favorite voices in the world. And it's such a bizarre experience to watch this and listen to that at the same time because the voices to me are quite similar. I'd be interested to hear Stephen McHattie's English accent because Willem Dafoe's is unforgivable. It is so bad.
I want to know if he's ever said, or if you got to the bit in the book where he says, I'm something of a Langolier myself.
Yes, I got to that bit and it was perfect, let me tell you. But I get similar vibes in terms of some of the messaging in the two stories, and the threat of sound in the Langoliers is ever present. The sound of the Langoliers is coming on the horizon the whole time. It's this crackling noise that destroys everything in its path, etc., etc. So, watching and listening to the two things in parallel was quite interesting. They sort of started to bleed into each other a little bit, especially, what I perceive as a resemblance between the two performers. But I also found it really interesting that the conversations around both sort of push in a similar direction, and they can be a little bit polarizing. I'm wondering, there's obviously a bit of a, like you said, a last minute flag waving plea for peace type message at the end of this movie. And that's where you said you felt you started to lose, like the movie started to lose its grip a little bit. Is that the point where it slipped for you, or was there another point where you sort of stopped enjoying the whole final section?
No, I think that was the main thing, really. Like I say, I don't buy the making words meaningless in order to disarm them thing.
Hmm.
But I did like the physicality of that, like the speech where he's just saying yellow
Words.
is crowded is the only one that sticks in my head. But
Yeah.
like I liked that. It was the big stand on your chair and put your hand on your heart and you know carry the banner, wave the flag speech. I didn't like that.
You can.
And
Yeah.
that really dropped it off for me. And I think the post credit sequence is bullshit.
Mm.
I just think it's complete nonsense and makes no sense. And like people can have theories about that all day. I think it's designed to make people think that something's happening there, and
Right.
it isn't.
Right.
And like I mentioned Dreamland earlier, being the only other Bruce McDonald film that I've seen, and that is a sequel to the post credit sequence.
What?
Yeah, it's garbage, absolute garbage.
Okay.
But
So is there a purpose there? Is it supposed to be connecting some sort of directorial universe or something, or is it just a motif that
no,
he likes? Or
it's a non sequitur.
Oh.
It's designed to be a non sequitur.
fair enough. I mean, I don't hate that. I don't really care either way. It just felt like a strange decision that I thought must have must have some motivation behind it. Yeah, it's bizarre, but I like this as a Canadian movie as well. I like that there's a lot of references to, the long, dark, bleak, punishing winter, and the fact that that kind of motivates quite a lot of the despair in the movie and the misanthropy and the. I liked all that, and I did wonder if that was going to play a bigger part, or if you thought that was doing more than it looked like it was doing on the tin. Is there something there about the isolation and the cold?
I don't know about that, but it does you. Despite the fact that you spend all of your time, apart from the opening scene, in this one room,
Mm,
like you still feel the isolation that's outside,
yeah,
and like you feel. I don't know if you feel the cold, but maybe you do.
I think so. Yeah, when the snow's blowing in through the door and the window, and when he's just talking about how cold it is, you just believe him. Yeah, a lot of that's performance led, but I buy it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too stuck on plot and plot problems, etc., etc. But did you at any point think to yourself, why is this happening, and why is it happening here?
Like, I don't think so. I think if I think about it too much, I get bogged down on that. But I
Yeah.
don't.
I just found it
I,
interesting. It's sort of there was like an outbreak type scene at a doctor's, and that's never
Yeah.
fully explained. And then we meet the doctor, and he never fully explains what happened or what is happening.
Also, a weak link in the movie. Bad actor.
I didn't hate his acting. I just hated how he just showed up and ran off and didn't have any exposition to really bring in a broad sense, apart from, sort of decoding the entire movie for us. I mean, like he didn't say, here's what happened and here's what's happening now. He would have been a good messenger for that.
Yeah, so I read some stuff online that obviously they talk about him as a doctor,
Yeah.
but they never talk about what kind of doctor he is.
Mm.
So could he be a psychotherapist or the kind of doctor that where people are more talky than a physician?
Well, he's very blunt, which led me to
Yeah.
believe potentially not. I thought, like, here's a guy who doesn't have a lot of bedside manner. He's probably, like, I don't know, not a psychotherapist or a mental health professional. But yeah, again, I didn't want to dwell on him too much because I feel like he comes in and he goes out and he does his bit. I didn't really understand, if I'm totally honest, the repetition of the phrase being broadcast. That was one section where I don't know if I'd kind of zoned out maybe both times when I was watching it, but I didn't fully understand what that was all about.
So what I thought that they were doing there was trying to broadcast a message and using the infected people as their mouthpieces. So like if they get infected people, I'm going to say zombies, Sam, I'm sorry.
You could say zombies all you want, bud. I'll just be tallying them up down here for forfeits later.
So they're using the zombies as basically a game of telephone to get the message that she's alive.
I thought they were doing that to get them out of the not bunker, out of the church basement. I thought the infected were doing it to get them out of the not bunker. Because it sends them out somehow, doesn't it? I actually even think this might be explained in the movie. I just think I didn't.
Yeah, well, it's because they're looking for the source of the words.
Right.
And the source of the words is a speaker on the front of the building because they can't hear them through the soundproof glass.
So they go to the source.
Yeah, and then
I don't get why. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't get why they pick those words. Why they go to the source.
well, like I say, I think that they are specifically trying to broadcast that message outwards
To whomst?
to her child.
I thought her child was away with her dad in the city.
Yeah, well, in a world where the phone doesn't work, this is how you tell people that you're alive, right?
She was on the phone with him.
The phone died after that.
Yeah, I don't get it. Thin, flimsy, not good enough. Well, it's going to go all the way to fucking Toronto from bumfuck Idaho, middle of nowhere, blackface, fucking tiny town. Yeah, I don't get that. And at that point, they don't know it's not just isolated to literally the fucking 2 hectares that they're on there and then. I don't know. Anyway, without picking it apart, I think it's fairly original in its approach to bunker movies. I think it takes a pretty wild swing at something conceptually borderline absurd, and it still manages to maintain a real sense of closeness and intimacy and horror throughout, with a big pukey blood scene.
Yeah, I mean that's great. I think now I'm on record here on this very podcast of telling you how much I hate like big tonal drone scores.
Yeah.
But it fucking works in this movie, doesn't it?
It smashes. It's for a movie that's so close and isolated and small. I feel like the droney stuff gives it this sense of vertigo and like spinning out of control that is fucking, it's discombobulating to say the least, being in such a tight, tiny space and feeling like you're being chucked around the horizon. It's really interesting.
It's like the audio equivalent of like a dolly zoom. Like
it really is, yeah. And I think that's a tricky choice. Like they could have done so many bad things with the music, score, sound, everything in this movie, and I feel like they pretty much fucking bang it.
Yeah, I mean the sound as well is amazing. I love the way that it differentiates between him having a normal conversation and him being on the radio.
Yeah,
like they're so different, and like this the way that the sound is treated is different. And I also love that, like, this is a movie about storytelling, literally about, like, using language to communicate with people and how that can sometimes go wrong. And obviously, the only way the movie communicates with us is through these people speaking, these unreliable narrators making stuff up based on the tiny bit of information that they've got. Yeah, it's so clever to me that, like, we've got all these things to say about language and talking and listening and understanding, and then they're delivering that through that medium only. Obviously, we get some gory stuff. We get the pukey blood scene. We get the face planting into the glass stuff. We get all the stuff on the phone with your mate Ken Loney.
Yeah, Ken. It feels like there's a lot of really good consistent messaging about context in the movie as well. Ken's a good example of that. The fact that Grant Mazzy doesn't understand his audience yet. He hasn't grasped the kind of much reduced scale of his audience and the intimacy and the trust implied in that relationship, and he still treats it like he's a big hotshot Toronto broadcaster or whatever. So I like that that's a repeated piece of messaging, because it makes me think that the movie is trying to tell us something about context, and it's trying to tell us that context is really fucking important, possibly as important as the conveyance of information and the reliability of the press, etc. And I really like
the context thing. There is why the specific choice of blackface is used.
Yeah, I think that ties in with that theme quite nicely. I think that's a pretty, dare I say it, it's kind of a clever way to show that in a bunker, to give context to a broader situation.
Yeah, in a bunker, in a zombie movie, I think it is
the best zombie bunker movie since Zombie Bunkers 4.
Yeah.
The
Fuck zombos.
I love a lot of people express, it seems, in my sort of cursory research, confusion at the Ken Loney as a paedophile scene. I love it, and again, I think it's a context message, and I think it's
Yeah, no, I love that too. I love that, like, we're drip fed these bits of information that would be so important. You would have a real picture and a real pretext, a real first impression of this character if you knew that A, they were lying about being in a helicopter,
yeah.
and B, they were also a paedophile. He's not a paedophile. We just don't like our kids near him. Like,
I love that at the point that line's delivered, we're kind of reeling that Ken's died because we kind of love him by that point. We love his enthusiasm and his dedication to his job. We've absolutely fallen in love with the tidbit of information that he pretends he's in a helicopter by playing sound effects. It's so small town, but it's also really fucking adorable. Despite being a deception of some sort. And then he goes through this awful ordeal. We hear all of it. He goes through stuff that he says is going to ruin his life forever. He sees people die. He has this awful experience. And then we find out he was a fucking pedophile. Like, that's such a good curveball. And it's really funny. Not an enormous amount of really pitch perfect black humor in this movie, but that's one of the moments that rings my bell.
Yeah, no.
Again, in defense of
really
pedophiles, it's a great joke.
It's very excellently delivered.
Yeah,
Besides the Doctor, I don't think anyone does anything wrong in this movie.
I agree.
And like that line, the not a great obit line.
Yep.
Just like it just sings.
Yeah, I think. Are you saying Hool for Lisa Hool?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Everything in this, like we've already said, is pretty much pitch perfect in terms of the visuals, but the costume and the makeup and everything for all our three main characters for the whole movie feel great. They legit look like they've just come to work for a normal day's work. There's nothing over the top happening here. Everyone looks casual, cool, normal, and they act as such, I think. And then everything starts to escalate in proportion to what's happening. There's a few jarring moments where I don't necessarily buy Stephen McHattie's reaction to what's happening outside, but I consistently buy the reactions of Georgina Riley and Lisa Hall's characters because they feel more like anchors. They're less wild card. They're more consistent, and they have a pretty simple, straightforward mission, which is to keep him on the air and keep him on the straight and narrow. So as a supporting cast, I think they're fucking fantastic, and I really enjoy what they give Stephen McHattie in terms of room and a great back and forth dialogue type relationship with Lisa Hall as his producer, his sort of long suffering producer. I think that's great.
I completely agree, and I also think like the fact that we're using language as the infection point for this outbreak, whatever it is, means that we're set up for loads of just really creepy moments using language. I think some of them don't really work when Lisa Hall's character is infected and she just keeps saying kill, kill, kill. It's like a boring word for this movie for that to be her infection word to keep repeating. It's a bit on the nose for me.
The whole kill is kiss is pretty on the schnoz.
Yeah. When the little blackface girl is infected at the beginning point and she's just like saying pra, that's really fucking creepy.
Yeah.
And we're sort of slow zooming on this tiny innocent child's face, and we know that something fucked up is happening here because people just don't talk like that.
Yeah, she's gone.
Yeah.
And she's probably going to kill her whole family, and it's great.
Yeah. That's just really cool to me, and I really rate that.
I like Dr. Mendez saying breathe. I think that's great because in the context, you could almost think that someone would be saying that to themselves. But the way he does it, it's like every time he puts his hand to his mouth, like a whoops, and you think, ooh, when's someone going to notice? And that's why I like his performance, because it feels sort of frantic and on the edge and very animated and very Muppet-esque. And he does bring a big old fucking boost of energy to those scenes. And I thought breathe was a really good word choice.
Yeah, I quite liked when people almost had like word salad and they would just say the wrong thing. Is it Ken Loney on the phone where he keeps saying sample?
Yeah.
and that's just really cool. I think like the way that I think I enjoy like a word salad, especially like it's delivered so well.
Yeah, and
And you
and it is
really,
scary. It taps into a really visceral, basic human health fear of losing your mind and losing the ability to communicate. Aphasia, terrifying stuff. Is playing into real life shit that obviously, watching someone much like our listeners right now are listening to somebody unable to communicate their thoughts and feelings is a frightening experience. And it leans
yeah,
into that. I would say terrifyingly, but also pretty tastefully. Like it doesn't. There's no like mad zoom shots of someone struggling to find a word and like dun dun dun, which you could have in a movie like this. It just does it well.
yeah. I wanted to ask you, Sam, what you think the missing cat is about.
I loved it as a motif. In the beginning, I thought here's something that's going to keep being repeated, almost for a little bit of almost like a surrealist device for consistency and a symbol of the outside world. Some kind of way of saying there are things happening in the outside world, like real life, small town shit happening outside. Remember that because you're in a bunker movie. But as it progressed, I started to wonder, was that the beginning of the word plague?
Yeah, no, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, my follow-up question was if so, why? But we've been that. Because obviously, Grant Mazzy's first encounter with somebody who's infected presumably is the woman in the snow on his way to the studio, right?
Yeah.
So it's not his broadcast that causes that shit that's already happening.
Yeah, maybe it's the poster itself.
That's what I mean, yeah. So the poster
Yeah.
ties in with him repeating it in the broadcast. And then there's that recorded message that he's not supposed to translate and read out that he does.
Yeah, I think it's stupid that they would say don't translate this message at the end of the message.
That's the worst UX writing I've ever encountered in my life.
Yeah.
Absolutely dreadful.
Absolutely. The French Canadian military fucking idiots. I'm
Yep.
saying it now. The mounted army of Canada. I have no idea if the army are mounties.
Do you
The
know the
armed
Mounties, it turns out, suck more than the cops? I had this conversation with a close friend of the pod, Chris Cresswell. Apparently the Mounties, their origin story is that they were basically formed to forcibly remove native people from their land. That's why the Mounties were created.
I mean, is that worse than police?
Yes.
Because the police were created to return slaves that had run away from their slave owners.
And primarily to protect rich people's property. I think displacing native people on horseback with weapons is pretty fucking gross.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not gross. I'm saying
Yeah, you are. In defense of the Mounties.
I'm saying, is it worse? Is there a material difference to capturing freed slaves and returning them to their slave owners?
I thought the police were formed before all that shenanigans was going down, like just to protect rich people's property. And then that was like a fun, moonlighting job for them. Oh, you're really great at protecting rich people's property. Would you also like to return runaway slaves to their owners?
Do you know what else rich people's property entails?
Ensuring that slaves don't escape. Yeah. So, listen, the Mounties and the cops, not the good guys in this tale.
My only frame of reference for Mounties is the TV show Due South.
Yeah.
And therefore, he's a lovely Mountie.
He's fantastic. Gorgeous dog.
Yes. Socially awkward, but very handsome. Oh, there's also the movie Dudley Do Right with, what's his name? George of the Jungle, Encino Man.
Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser.
So what you're saying is not all Mounties are bastards.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the Mountie, the wrestler?
I don't remember the Mountie, the wrestler.
Do you not? Oh, I used to love the Mountie. I think for a brief period, for a real show of authoritarian flex, the Mountie and the Big Boss Man were a tag team. It's a cop and a Mountie coming down on you.
In that period of wrestling, I only cared about the Legion of Doom.
It was really hard to care about anyone else. Absolutely. Well, the Mountie was Jacques Rougeau, and for a brief time was managed by the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Some great stuff. Some great pieces to camera.
Yeah, I liked the Legion of Doom, and I kind of liked the Universal Warrior.
The Ultimate Warrior?
The The Ultimate Warrior, the Universal Soldier.
Universal Soldier.
Thing.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, I liked him too. He could
Me
do the
too.
splits.
Big fan.
That was peak wrestling for me.
Me too.
I never really cared about Hulk Hogan.
I liked Hulk Hogan. Yeah, great music.
I once went to see in a fucking, I don't know, a town hall in like small town Blackburn or something, where I went to see Giant Haystacks fight the Big Daddy. It was amazing.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
We went to wrestling where I live, and I was with my mom. And this is when I tell you that I was 34 maybe at this time, but she fucking loves it. So we went, and my mom booed Gangrel, the bad guy, so hard that a member of staff had to come up and say, "Can you dial it back a bit? This is for kids." To which she said, "Fuck you," and booed everyone even harder. We nearly got ejected from the wrestling.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it was great. Yep, full audience participation. But do you think the lost cat in this carries any like further weight or deeper meaning?
No.
No.
If it does, I've not been able to infer it.
Well, I respect how much you could think about this movie almost endlessly, and how much you could justify every single decision with a million different fascinating explanations. I think that's why it's such good fuel for debate, and it's such fun for friends to talk about, and why it's such a valuable little part of the bunker movie canon, because it leaves so much open to interpretation, and in quite a fun way. It does feel a bit too cocksure, and like it is trying to tie everything up neatly in a bow and be really assertive with its messaging, for me to feel like it pulls that off. But, that being said, I actually don't have any interest in picking this movie apart beyond what we've already said, because it does everything in such an entertaining way, and it's so purposeful in its art and its expression that I just have the utmost respect for the writing, the performance, and the editing as well. I think is, apart from a few like slightly strange semi non sequitur scenes in the middle, really fucking cool. I think 6.5 out of 10 isn't an enormously fair rating on IMDb, especially given how beyond budget the slickness of the visuals are. I think it looks really fucking good. I sort of struggled to figure out why this hasn't reached a broader audience. Maybe it's because it doesn't do for zombie fans what zombie movies do, which is have lots of zombies eating people, Maybe because it doesn't do that, it doesn't reach a broader zombie fandom. What do you think?
I mean, I went on Letterboxd and I organized all reviews by lowest rating to highest.
Right.
And there are literally thousands of people that are just saying this is boring, this is nonsense, this doesn't make any sense, the performances are shit.
Wow.
So, like, people who care enough, some people who care enough to write reviews are wrong.
Really thought that was going somewhere for a minute. You had me.
No,
it's interesting because I can see how, on closer analysis, I can see how a movie like this would be massively divisive. I know people whose opinions I really respect, who I can see them in my mind's eye getting to the point where somebody says the virus is transmitted through words, and they go, nope, and turn this movie off at that point. I don't want to even fucking entertain another second of it. And I understand that reaction. There was a tiny part of me that you could have leaned into that in a different mood. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like you're missing out on some pretty good fun if you switch the movie off there. Part of that, I think, is because I have such a profound respect for the more sort of metaphysical side of a lot of comedy sci-fi. This feels a bit Red Dwarf to me. Again, like anything that even feels remotely Red Dwarf, it immediately is worth watching, in my opinion. But the idea could be coming out of Crichton's mouth. Do you know what I mean? It feels down that alley.
Yeah, no, I'm such a sucker for the high concept, like low budget, minimal location type of movie. So there's like this, there's Coherence, there's The Cube.
Yeah.
It's not called The Cube, is it? It's just called Cube.
Oh, is it? I thought it was The Cube. Fair enough.
No, I think, isn't The Cube the game show on like ITV with Philip Schofield?
I have no idea. Are you talking about, you're not talking about the 2021 movie? Oh, no. Yep, that's it. That's the TV show. Yeah, that's The Cube.
Yeah. So yeah, Cube is the one where they go through different rooms and it's the same room,
Yeah.
but it's just dressed up slightly differently. Which is, I think, is a Vincenzo Natali.
1997's Cube, directed by Vincenzo Natali.
I'm a big fan of Vincenzo Natali.
Julian Richings, good egg.
Great Egg, also Canadian.
So many good Canadians in the world. Give it up
Yeah.
for all the good Canadians. Is he the guy from
Not the
Septic Man?
Mounties,
No, he's not.
but not the Mounties.
Fuck the Mounties. So, knowing that, it's one of my only minor criticisms of the movie is that everyone just eats up that explanation. These aren't high concept characters in this movie, are they? They're small town radio people, and they're like, of course, this enormously complicated, brain chemistry derived fifth dimensional explanation for why this quote unquote zombie apocalypse is happening is totally plausible, and I'll run with it. It's the first and only hypothesis. So, yeah, sure. But apart from that, yeah, you're in goosey territory.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree that it is insane, but these people are the people that think that they're more educated and better than the rest of the people in this town, right?
Well, I don't know. I think Glenn definitely, absolutely 100%. But the other two, I'm not so sure. I think they're pretty compassionate about their community and they want to uphold it and they want to do a service to it. I don't feel like they're necessarily superior. I think they're doing a really good job of anchoring Grant and pulling him into the reality of where he's landed by illustrating that fact. They do that really well.
Yeah. I think they have to just buy it, otherwise the rest of the movie would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why are you saying it's because of language?
And that would be so annoying if you had characters who were too dumb to get what was happening to them at this point.
Yeah.
That would be so derailing. I totally agree. And
they would just
again,
die instantly because they would just be like, oh, so if I say honey, it means I'm going to die. Honey, honey, honey.
Yeah, they'll just keep talking. Yeah. I mean, they do keep talking anyway. I like, in terms of standout moments and scenes, I really enjoyed Lisa Hall writing her confession on the wall in the Knot bunker with a Sharpie. I thought that was pretty haunting as a thing, and it made me think, oh, she's definitely going to die, and then she didn't, which is great. And I also didn't actually see Georgina Riley's character dying at all. I thought she was a total survivor from the very beginning, and she's the first to go.
Yeah, no, you definitely think they're the opposite, don't you? You think that because she's on side, and the other one, Lisa Hall's character, is the antagonist, effectively.
And Laurel, the young girl, Georgina Riley's character, she's ex-military. So you think, she goes into military mode as soon as shit starts to hit the fan. You're like, right, she's carrying the show from here on out. She's going to make the smart decisions. She might be, she's going to be interesting from here on out because she's going to have some serious, polarizing decisions to make. And then she fucking immediately starts puking blood on the window and dying. It's a cool little throwaway trick.
Is it a cool little throwaway trick, or is it some sort of comment about the way that people in the military regurgitate what they've been told and are forced to follow orders, and their relationship with language is different because they exist to follow orders.
Yeah, it could be. I didn't pick that up on first watch, but it is definitely.
I just came out just now.
Yeah.
That's me thinking about it on the fly.
Nice. I mean, that is a huge bugbear of mine. Is the sort of inappropriate use of language and the sort of institutionalized use of language that you get in all kinds of, I guess, armed service / service in general, like the service industry, the armed services. It all becomes so sterile, prosaic, and repetitive. Whenever you see a Mountie giving their testimony after using their service weapon, it's all that kind of language, isn't it? It's pretty deplorable. Yeah, that's a pretty astute read. I would take that completely. It's made tricky by the fact that we like that character, right?
Yeah. Well, same with Ken Loney.
Yeah. Pedophile.
Well, not pedophile. Just wouldn't
let him around my kids.
Yeah.
so good.
I love that as well. That's such a small town way of talking about a paedophile.
It really is, yeah.
Like, they just live here. They're just part of the scenery.
Yeah, it is a real in defense of paedophilia moment. Like,
Yeah. I have a question
go on.
that's not really important, but do the people of Pontypool think he's in a helicopter? Or do they just choose to go along with the facade that, that he's in a helicopter?
That's the thing I thought about most about this movie is Ken Loney's world. I thought to myself, do we before we find out that he is/isn't a paedophile, is the reason we love him deepened by the fact we imagine this is all just for him? He's just like chop, 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 chop. Here I am in the sky. That makes him even more adorable. Or do we love the town even more for their naivety that they think they're being reported on? They think they're having their lives reported on by a guy in a helicopter that they never see. The helicopter's never in the sky.
Yeah, it's a small enough town that you would see the helicopter occasionally.
All the fucking time. He's up there every day. Yeah, so I love that that's left open-ended because it endears us to both him and the town. It makes us pity him. It makes us...
I don't think it endears the town to me. It endears me to him. The idea that...
Yeah.
Well, like, either way it endears me to him. Either like he's fooled everybody and that's fun, or everybody pities him and that's also fun.
Yeah.
But if the town believe it, that makes me look down on them.
Well, that's interesting.
From a helicopter.
To me, it made the people of the town just what am I trying to say? It made the town seem even smaller, and that made it more endearing to me. I don't know. Do you have a favorite helicopter pilot in a movie?
No, but I have a favorite helicopter moment in a movie.
And I will bet my entire life that it's the same one as mine.
I don't think I would bet. In fact, let's bet.
Okay, I'll bet 1 can of retro Pepsi.
Okay, Pepsi Max, please.
Okay, whatever. Go on, what's your favorite?
My favorite helicopter moment in a movie is from the movie Terminator Woman, the Filipino Terminator knockoff.
Yeah.
Spoilers for the movie Terminator Woman. So the movie is a knockoff of Terminator. But it's a woman.
Wow, not just a clever name. Another one.
And she's also not a robot. She's like a demon, but Terminator. And she's been all like badly burned and killed and mashed up by the end of it by this like group, this army group. And there's a guy in a helicopter flying around like shooting her with like lasers, while this like biker gang of people who are trying to stop the Terminator Woman are like around, and she just looks at the helicopter and fires laser eyes at the helicopter. First time in the movie she has laser eyes. Last time in the movie she has laser eyes, and the helicopter just explodes in the sky, and one of the guys on the ground is like, "Dirk, my brother," and that's it.
Sounds superb. Criminal to spoil the whole of Terminator Lady based on that woman. Based on that
Lady Terminator is a different movie. Also great.
That does sound like a great helicopter scene, to be fair.
What's your helicopter scene?
Mine's basic compared to yours. It's from a little known movie called Die Hard. And it's the scene where the feds are in the helicopter and one of them goes, "Just like fucking Saigon, huh, Slick?" And the other guy goes, "I was in junior high, dickhead." That's such a good line.
It is a good line.
Yeah, not as good as Terminator people. Ladies.
Woman.
So this has been Die Hard, Terminator Woman, and every other movie under the sun, plus Pontypool. Would you like...
Let me ask you one question.
Go on.
No, in fact, not a question. Let me tell you about the worst thing in this movie, and then we'll take a break.
Oh, interesting. Go on.
When the zombies break in, when the zombies break into the bunker, right?
You got to give a little to take a little, haven't you?
Yeah, it's a compromise. There is something in, I don't know, the set, the Foley, the way it's shot, everything looks like ass. It doesn't read well. It doesn't feel physically like good. It doesn't look interesting. It just looks like people gingerly crawling through a set window in the hopes that they don't accidentally break the stud wall that's holding the set up. Do you know what I mean?
There's something tentative about it, yes. And
like
yeah.
the Foley would sell that, and the Foley, in a movie where the sound is so front and center and beautifully done, and the music, although I hate the music on that big speech at the ending, but like the music and the audio situation that surrounds this movie is so careful. Just like the glass shattering noise, the way that it looks like what do they call it? The movie glass. I can't remember what they call it. It's like
Sugar glass?
Sugar glass, that's the one. Like it looks like sugar glass. It and the Foley doesn't sell it, and it really fucks me off.
It almost doesn't happen. It's so low key. And to be honest, and again, I'm trying. I really don't think I'm just being contrary here. I actually quite enjoyed that because it wasn't zombie-like to me. It was just, it didn't have the focus on this like oppressive tide of zombies coming in and they're going to get you, Barbara. It was all pulling focus back to the small silent room, which I liked because it felt muffled in the way that I kind of felt it was supposed to be, because it's supposed to be a silent little room and it's supposed to be the only place they're safe. So it worked for me on that level. But if you asked me to like physically describe one of the people who come into the studio at that point who were calling zombies, I couldn't to save my life. Totally not a memorable moment.
I don't mind them being in there. It's the physical act of them climbing through the window, breaking the window. It doesn't ring true. It doesn't feel authentic in the movie where everything has felt so carefully considered. And that was a real letdown to me.
Yeah, it's a drag.
But on that high note, let's take a quick break. And we'll come back and we'll sum up our thoughts on Pontypool.
Pontypool.
Will you give it up, man? Nobody's out there. We're alone. Oh no, there's somebody out there. I'm picking up all this crosstalk.
Okay, we're back, Sam. Are you
back?
back?
Whoa, you tried to fucking get me there, didn't you? Yeah, we're back. I'm back. I was back before you, buddy. We're here. Pontypool. Let's sum up. A good film.
Yeah, I think a good film. I want to... it's not without its problems, but I think the first 2/3 of this movie are basically perfect for what it's trying to achieve. I don't even think that the ending and the other bits that annoy me or take me out of it, they don't affect how much I enjoyed the first 2/3. And even with Grant Massey's big fucking pattern speech at the end, I'm just happy to hear him talk. I think sometimes he looks a little bit like Judge Reinhold. Like a real haggard,
fucking hell, Jesus.
Like a really haggard Judge Reinhold.
Like if you took Judge Reinhold and Sean Penn now and mashed them together.
Yeah. But I just think it's solid all around, and I think the concept within the narrative doesn't hold up to any scrutiny. But when you think about what they're trying to say, even if you don't want to think about it, it's fucking they're slapping you in the face with it, and I think that's interesting. I think it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting way to build a premise for a movie, is to think about language, and without it being like it's obvious and it's it's easy to figure out, but it never feels cheap. It never feels like they're going, hey, look at this. This is what we think. It's like, hey, look at this. We're making this movie, and you think the same thing that we're thinking, and that's cool. And I really rate that. I really rate it. I would give it 11 little Jerry Ramone statues out of 15.
I'm glad you spotted that. Nice.
This is the first the first instance of Jerry Ramone on the pod. Friend of the
far.
pod.
Yeah.
I wish there was a horror movie with Jerry Ramone in it. The nearest we'll ever get is Pet Sematary.
Yeah, or I don't know if this is closer. Idle Hands, because the Offspring cover I Want to Be Sedated.
That's true. And they're in it.
You're physically
I reckon
doing horror.
I reckon that Jerry Ramone is probably a much, much better actor than Dexter Holland.
I mean, I would absolutely refute that and refer the jury to Exhibit A, Rock and Roll High School, in which
Rock and Roll High School fucking rips.
nobody acts well in that movie, not even for a second.
I believe that he wants to eat some pizza.
I don't, because he goes and then gums some pizza. It's fucking piss poor. In fact, Rock and Roll High School is a horror movie starring Joey Ramone, and it sucks.
Is it? Where's the horror stem from? There is it?
It's horrific.
I love that movie.
I do too, but it sucks.
Did you ever watch Rock and Roll High School Forever?
Yes, absolutely fucking terrible. Riff Randall. Oh boy, she's in fucking Halloween, right?
Yeah, it's PJ Souls.
Yeah, PJ Souls. Yeah. Oy, oy, oy. Anyway, back to the safe haven of Pontypool, which I'm going to give 17.5 kicked to death children in blackface out of 25. I think it's a strong mission statement of a movie that you just have to get on board with. I think the message is solid and resonant. The performances are fantastic. Setting's great. The whole concept is incredibly clever to me. Felt original. I know I have a small sample size, not having seen all of the bunker zombie movies on Earth, but there was a lot of stylistic flair in this, like the extended obituary scene with all the black and white footage. I thought was pretty wonderful. Reminded me of Nebraska for some reason. So just everything we've already said and more. I feel
album.
like, huh?
The album?
No, the movie, the Bruce Dern movie. Have you seen Nebraska with Bruce Dern?
I don't think I have.
Oh, it's great. Highly recommend it. It's a lot like Pontypool in that it isn't at all. A lot.
There's zombies. There's bunkers.
Yeah,
it's exactly like Pontypool.
It's in my top 5 zombie bunker movies. I would say that half the fun of this movie is how surprising it is first watch, and then second watch how thought provoking it is, and how much fun there is to be had with the concepts and the action without discrediting the movie. In the sense that a lot of it is, unexplained / unexplainable. A really interesting little flick, and I like it as a B movie. I think it works really well as a very well produced B movie, and if that's what you want for a night's entertainment, you're fucking swimming in it in Pontypool. Shit artwork aside, good movie.
Interesting that we talked about a bunker zombie movie and we didn't mention Day of the Dead.
Well, I was thinking about it the whole time, especially when I asked you your favorite helicopter scene. I thought maybe there might be a Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead reference. That is, the definitive zombie bunker movie.
Yeah.
But again, it's a zombie movie, so there's very little to compare in terms of substance between these two films.
I can see your little face. But it's also a bunker movie, so yeah, you're right. There is little to compare.
So true. Yeah. So true.
So true, bestie.
So that was Pontypool. Thank you for listening to the Final Transmission podcast. Thanks for hanging out with me and Jamie. Do all those things we said earlier. Rate and review. Follow us on social media. Tell your friends. Get out there and spread the good word. Next time you poke your head out your bunker, if the coast is clear of zombies, give a little shout out to your boys at Final Transmission.
Do all that.
Do
it
all.